Hello, in this lesson, we're going to introduce functions. Then in our next class, we're going to make them a little bit more advanced and more usable. But to start, we're going to cover the syntax of functions so that we can learn how to read them. Once we know how to read them, then we can start looking at other Python code and understanding what that other Python code does and how it works. And that's going to be really helpful for us learning, right? Python is a language like any other. One of the best ways to learn a language is to spend time practicing reading that language, not just writing it. This video is focused on the syntax of functions. So what are functions would probably be the important precursor. Print is a function that I have been using this entire time. I forgot the quotation mark. There we go. Print is a function that we've been using the entire time, and it allows some code to run somewhere else. So a function is a way to take a group of statements and expressions and lines of code and bottle it up and give it a name. And then I can call that from wherever I want. So let's make our own function that we can use. So I'm going to use the what's a good function to start with? I guess just like printing hello world. We start with the word def for define, because we're defining a function, then a space. And that's how we know that we're not making a variable called plaza. It could be a variable name. Def space, and then a function name. Say hello world. And we're going to use snake case for functions generally in Python often. I'm not going to be super picky about your conventions, but I will be picky about us being consistent. So if you're using snake case for functions, use snake case for functions everywhere. And because most people do, that's what we will do, which will make it easier for us to read other people's code. So say hello world, and then we need two parentheses. We need to open a parentheses and then close the parentheses. Whenever you have an opening parentheses, you must have a closing one. That's true for parentheses. That's true for, where are my other symbols on this keyboard? Brackets. That's true for curly braces. That's true for chevrons or angle brackets, unless they're the operator for less than or greater than, in which case it's a different thing. Whenever you have an opening, you must have a closing. They must go together. And then a colon. And here is where Python gets a little bit freaky, a little bit weird, which is, that's it. There's no curly brace. We just go to a new line after the colon, and then we indent one amount. We can indent with the tab key or 4 spaces. I don't care which you use. I will be using tab because I'm not a monster. No, it really doesn't matter what you use. It will get converted into spaces that Python wants 4 spaces. But every text editor we use will just handle all of that for us, so it doesn't matter. So we'll use a tab, and anything that is indented by 1 will be a part of this function. So we can have one line of code and another line of code. I'm just going to keep using really basic things. And then when we're done, we can do that. So let's save that code and let's run it. And it says this time a function. Is that what I typed? That doesn't make any sense. And not part of the function, but it didn't say hello world. So my code never ran. I broke it. Well, everything went fine. I defined a function. I said, this is where a function will go. This is a function. And should you need that function, here it is. But at no point in time did I actually call, which is our word for running, the function. So let's call the function. To do that, we type the name of the function, without the def. We just type its name directly. And that's it. Run module. And now I begin with this time a function, because then my first statement ran. and then it said not part of the function, which would be then the second thing that happened. So I defined the function but didn't call it. And then this is the next line because Python's going top to bottom. And then this is going to the next line. And then it jumped back up here to that function and it said hello world again. So notice that we were able to make the code run kind of out of order and it no longer went top to bottom. And in fact, that is how computers tend to work. We tend to spend a lot of our time writing functions and then we sort of have our smaller like entry point or main loop or game loop if it's a video game that sort of defines how we go and find those things. And then we make different files where we organize by usage and functions and type, and we don't organize by like the time that the code gets executed. We organize by like what the code does, which is much more useful and much better for programmers to work with. And as a convention, when we name a function, we name it based on its usage, which is to say what it does, not its implementation, which is to say how it does it. So we name functions for the benefit of the person calling the function, not the benefit for the person writing the function. And that'll make more sense when we write functions that actually do more interesting things. Let's call the function a few more times. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. There we go. I have a weird keyboard. Don't worry about it. Run module. So even though I only wrote hello, print world once, I was able to, I don't like this software, opening separate windows. Even though I only said print hello world once, I called it 3 times. So I ran the first line, print, this time a function. I clicked and I lost it. Then the not part of a function, and then hello world, and then hello world again, and then hello world again. And now we can start to think about what the real use of functions are, which is that they allow us to repeat ourselves, which is great. So let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of that. What we're going to cover in class is how we get data in and out of the function. So we could so I'm going to give you a little preview here, which is what the parentheses are all about. Great. Run module. So the whole point of functions is not only that we allow us to repeat ourselves, but we can repeat ourselves a little bit differently. So here I have some names, some members of the arts department, as well as my colleague in immersive media department. And we've been able to print out their names with the same sort of prefix sentence and their name at the end. We can also do fun things like implement operators. Oops, here's my colon. Oh, got there. We haven't talked about return statements. We're just going to print. We will cover return statements on we will cover return statements during our next class. But 1 plus 2 is 3, 2 plus 3 is 5, 3 plus 4 is 7. So those are the functions or parameters or arguments, arguments or parameters, and whether you're outside the function or inside the function, you refer to them differently, but that's becomes really confusing. So I'm just going to call them arguments. The data we put into a function, execute that function with that data. Return is how to get the data out of the function. We'll cover that later. But that's functions, right? So the syntax is that def space, and then the function name in snake case, and then the parentheses. Inside the parentheses are variables separated by commas or something, or maybe nothing. And then a colon, and then after the colon is all of the lines of the function indented by one. And when we lose that indentation, we have stopped declaring the function and we're back to writing the Python code. I mean, the main Python code that the Python is executing. So I now want to pivot in a weird way and say, okay, if this is the syntax of a function in Python, what does the syntax of functions look like in other languages? So I want to show you, I have a number of other systems, a number of other languages open on my computer here, and I want to show you how functions get written in those. So let's start with JavaScript. So I have a JavaScript project open. I hate JavaScript. I have a JavaScript project open that is, oh, I broke it. Oh wait, no, I need to be in my index page. Index, and then I can run the current file. Great. It's a Picross game, if you know what Picross is, but it has a solver built into it, so it's fairly complicated. Yeah, I would have been wrong. Anyway, the line isn't showing. Who cares? Whatever. So in JavaScript, the way a function is written is instead of the word def, it's the word function, and then a space, and then the function name. And JavaScript, like here it's camel case, but that's just because I wrote this and I like camel case. JavaScript, there are no standards or style guides. Everyone, it's the Wild West out there in the world of JavaScript. No one cares. A lot of people care a lot, and there are a lot of people who then say what the standard should be. And then parentheses, and then our arguments that go in those, and then curly braces. And those curly braces can be on the same line, or they can be on the new line. We indent anyway, but we don't have to. We don't have to indent because we have the curly braces that say this is where the function starts and ends. We just, as human beings, always indent. So the creators of Python were like, well, if that's what we as human beings are actually using to delineate scope, then why don't we just have Python work with indents? Which is not an unreasonable thing to think. I think they're wrong because I like what I'm used to. But no, it's fine. We're obviously using indents all the time. Here's another function that's inline, so I don't need to write the word function because JavaScript has a way to use class. Oh my God, what are we at? Go away. There's another function. Where'd you go? Did I close it? I must have closed it. I had some other functions in here. There's another function, initialize hints, function create hints, whatever that means. Yeah, lots of functions. So that's JavaScript, the entire word function to write functions, except for all the times you don't. Close. Let's look at C#. Oh, we love C#. So here's a video game that I'm making in C#. Love how slow it is to load. It's actually a Unity thing, not a C# thing. Not the important part. It's a tactics game where, oh my God, did it break? Am I debugging? I am debugging. No. Okay. Come on. There you go. Move around, fight each other, yeah. Look at my small spheres, make tactical decisions. Incredible work, except for when the two decided to share the same space. So there are some bugs. Blue team's winning. Yep, blue team won. And then you're going to play as like a god type. I mean, not god. You're going to play as like some sort of make subtle changes so that your team wins, but not as like a member of a team, but as like maybe a god, maybe a ghost. I don't know. I haven't quite figured out how the game's going to work yet. Anyway. In C#, a function looks like this. It has scope, which is optional, so you won't always see that word, public or private. It has a return type, which we haven't talked about yet. In JavaScript, those don't need to get written. In Python, those don't need to get written. It'll just figure it out for you. In C#, we do need to say, is this an integer? Is this a Boolean? Then we have our names. You'll see mine are all camel case, uppercase. And then again, a parentheses, that seems to be constant amongst all these languages. And then a list of variables separated by commas. That's the same, except I need types because I am in a typed language. And then here we use curly braces. We still indent everything, but we use curly braces to determine when a function begins or ends. In JavaScript, most people put curly braces on the same line. In C#, most people put curly braces on a new line. It doesn't matter because C# actually doesn't care about white space at all, and you could write all of your code on one line, except for comments, which go to the end of the line. And this is totally valid. You can just write all your code like this. Hey, don't do that. But white space, tabs, indents, C# just ignores it completely. It just says, not my problem, your problem. I'm just going to look at the code like this, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's why we need semicolons. Python doesn't need semicolons because it does pay attention to new lines, indents, tabs, things like that. Okay. Let's close this C# project. Come on, go away. Shoot. What am I in? Different C# project. Let's go over into Rust. Ooh, Rust is a fun programming language. That's not letting me make this font bigger. What's the keyboard shortcut? Is that? No, it wasn't that. Control Shift plus. No. All right, can't help you. I could go into the view. Increase font. Alt Shift, comma, Alt Shift period. It's wild. Where's my Alt key? I have a weird keyboard. That's not a crazy sentence. Alt Shift period. On my split keyboard, this is like a very difficult keyboard shortcut. Okay, that's not important. In Rust, functions are very similar to. No, they're not. They're similar to everything else in that we have a function name in parentheses, but we have the fn instead of having to bother typing out the entire word function like in JavaScript, or use def like in Python. We use fn and then a space, and then the function name and then parentheses, and then we tend to have lot more weird symbols in all the arguments because of the mutable and immutability of Rust, and then the return type goes after instead of before. In C# return type is before. Here we also need to declare return type using this like dash greater than because it looks like an arrow. Weird. And then a curly brace. I love Rust in terms of its like design philosophy. I do hate Rust's syntax because I find like double colons annoying to type. And I find the ampersand annoying to type. But I'm inside CLion, which can do Rust very well and auto-fix everything, so it's very nice to work with. Rust also, like C#, does not care about line breaks and new lines. So we have curly braces for that. We still indent, but you don't have to in this language. This would work. This would run, and I think, what does this code do? Draw a picture of a camera up on screen. Yeah. Okay, so that is Rust. We use the fn instead of the word function, but like I'm starting to see some patterns. Weird return type in after, but it's fine. Did I want to have this open? I might have wanted to have that open. There were some other things. Here is Lua. Lua is weird. There's a function in Lua. Wait. Okay, this code doesn't have functions. I picked too simple of a file. It calls functions, but we don't define functions. It's okay, no one uses Lua anyway. What are we making Roblox games? Get out of here. This is Python. There's a function. I didn't even think to look at the Lua code. I just assumed there'd be a function there. Okay, the last one is C. This is a game I am making for this little teeny piece of hardware, but that has an emulator on the computer, so that's convenient. I don't need to plug this in all the time, but it would run on this tiny 1-inch little screen on a tiny little microcontroller. And it is a Sokoban game. za. And in C, we define functions with the return type instead of the word function, just like C#. It can sort of figure out that if you use the parentheses, then you're probably writing a function. You don't need to say the word function. And then the function name in camel case, in this case, lowercase camel case. And then parentheses and our arguments. It has asterisks here. That has to do with pointers, which is something that none of those, well, Rust, none of those other languages really had or used. And then, yeah, is that arrow syntax? Again, it's about pointers. And it uses the curly brace, even though we indent anyway. So, but we don't have to indent in C. The only thing weird about it is that in order for me to use a function from one file to another file, I have to write an entirely separate file that says, here are the functions that exist so that you know about them. And then other files can read that, and then they can call the implementation of it. Because the linking stage and the compilation stage are two separate things. So it's very weird, very different than most other languages. C, C++ have this like linking step with header files.h. Yeah. So that is the syntax for functions in 5 different languages. So why bother? What are the similarities and what are the differences with Python? And the differences are that there aren't many languages. C is very old. Most older languages tend to use curly braces instead of tabs because most older languages don't trust how different computers read the tab data. Is it spaces? Is it tabs? Are there 3 spaces, 4 spaces? Instead of having to figure that out, we're just going to use a different system. Python, a language written by adult humans that is modern and capable, written in the 90s, was like, I think we can probably figure it out. Everyone's using tabs anyway to indent. Let's just use that for the scope. Second, return types. Interesting. We have to circle back on that. So let's put a little note. Functions, return types, ? Put that in our notes. And we'll circle back and explore that. And then lastly, the arguments, variables that we can put into a function and use inside of a function. Those tend to be pretty standard amongst all languages. Parentheses tend to be pretty standard amongst all languages. This colon, that's a Python thing. And I think a Lua thing, but I don't remember my Lua. It's been a minute. The Playdate, the little yellow game console with a crank, I can make games in Lua on it. And now I'm like debating if I want to bother figuring Lua out. It seems fine. Okay, that's all I have to say about that. I hope you enjoyed. I mean, seeing syntax by looking at a bunch of things that are different syntax might feel insane, because it is a little bit insane. When I had all these things open, I was using 27 gigs of RAM. But there are patterns. There are patterns to how different programming languages work. All the different languages use functions. And once you learn one language, it's very easy to convert to others, right? You see me and I forgot that colon. I promise I know Python. It's not that my brain forgot. It's that my hands while I was typing forgot, because I just have all these habits that I'm used to. So we need to build those habits for you. I need to change these habits for me. But you just type Python for a couple minutes and then you're good. I spent all yesterday writing in C, working on that microcontroller project. So I'm in C mode. Work on Python for a day, and then I'm in Python mode, and it all becomes second nature. We don't have any modes for you to get into yet, so you're going to need to practice reading and writing Python. So that's it for this video. I hope this was helpful to you. I hope seeing other languages was, while could have been wildly intimidating, we can start sussing out sort of the similarities between them. Okay, bye.